blessed unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is the solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. Further evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning, self-lovers. Welcome back to the Self-Love Show. We are live Thursday morning here at 10 a.m. every week. Thank you for tuning in. We're so grateful to have you. It's been such an epic journey over, through the pandemic and all this time, all these amazing shows. And we just want to thank you for being present with us weekly and tuning in. We have a YouTube channel. In case the new viewers do not know, we have an amazing YouTube channel and we're on all the podcast platforms. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our amazing guest for today, Philippe. We're so grateful you're here. I'm going to read your intro here before we get started into our conversation for the day. So, have you ever been in a relationship and noticed how you or your partner seem to be following a sort of unspoken emotional script or a dance, leading you to down a path where triggers, difficulties, arguments, challenges, insecurities, and limitations seem to get the best of you? If you've been on this planet for long enough, you may have noticed that these patterns are more or less repeated for you and your partner. You've seen yourself enter these relationships again and again and again, always knowing that something is up, but never quite knowing why. Enters attachment theory, the remarkable view of relationships that seem to pretty much explain everything about how people can be secure or insecure in relationship, and how regardless of your attachment style, you will likely be in relationship with people who are either knowing about attachment theory or recognizing and knowing how to work with people with various attachment styles is one of the single most useful skills you can have in life. So Philippe is a relationship educator. He created Exquisite Dark Love to support men and women in making better choices for themselves and each of them so they can become sovereign humans through the practice of connection, trust, consent, intimacy, love, and the exploration of attachment theory. He is the co-founder of Remember Brotherhood Journey, a coordinator with ISTA, the International School of Temple Arts, and a modern voice on critical thinking about morality and the integration of masculine, feminine, dark, light, and shadow. Over the years, he founded the Open Relationship Community, the Attachment Community, and the Consent Community to support new emerging conversations on these important topics. He is also the happy father of a 9-year-old boy who teaches him how to surrender to love and life more fully every day. Oh, Philippe, that's wonderful. And we're so grateful to have you. You've done a lot of beautiful work, and thank you. Thank you today.
It's really good to be here. I have to say, he's 11 now. I need to update this. Parenting.
The same age.
What was that?
I said our boys are the same age.
What? Oh, it's the best age. He's getting at the age where not only is he able to call me on my bullshit, but he's also able to show up for it in a way that's non-judgmental. And we track each other. So I like to say that we're constantly hacking each other. Like he'll say, "Hey, you did that thing again," and because I haven't grown up to have the kind of bond that involves insecurity with him, I'll be able to take it in a way that I won't be able to take from my partner. Like she'll say things that make me feel insecure, that if he says the same thing, the exact same words, I'll probably be like, "Oh, you're right. Wow, okay, yeah, I need to be a better dad." And vice versa. Like we're able to speak to each other in ways that will call each other to greatness or to better, some version of better, even if we're doing the best that we can. So parenting is definitely a spiritual path.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
beautiful.
I want to share that many years ago, coming out of a wickedly abusive relationship, Philippe was my coach. And I'm incredibly grateful for you, because in that place, I was just I had hit all of my, well, all the my attachment triggers, like all of them. And I was hitting a lot of early wounding and also just a lot of PTSD triggers from abusive and violent experiences that I've had in my life. So your work in attachment theory was really a foundational practice for me to like springboard off into a more like leveled place. I mean, I had both Don Light and you on my side. Like, all right, we're gonna work through it together. You guys were just like pushing me forward. My therapist was like fucking amazing. Anyway, so that was 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I'm not really sure. Some time ago.
Yeah. That's
And
a while.
it was a long time ago. And what I love to see is how not only you've evolved, but your work has evolved, and how you have built the attachment community, which is how many people is it at right now?
10,000.
10,000 people are consistently being supported and working on more secure attachment. I'd love to, something that I would love to just say is like, or to kind of question and bring into the conversation first is like the earned secure is an amazing place to be. And is it possible to be secure all the time?
That's a setup. That's a setup question if I've ever heard one.
I know.
I'll answer with another question, which is it possible to walk and be in perfect balance all the time, or dance and be in perfect balance all the time? No, of course not. So if you imagine yourself as having both a physical body and an emotional body, can this emotional body be tired? Can this emotional body go out of balance and fall on its face? Is it better at some things than others? And the answer is yes. The answer is, if we look at ourselves through the perspective of like we have sort of a primal body and an emotional body and a physical body, then they all have their own characteristics and their own resilience and their own resources that can go out over time. So I mean, it's true, right? If you have too much stress, eventually you start to break down, and of course, people like will do all kinds of things to compensate for that. But the reality is, it's usually just like with the physical body and drinking coffee. It's not really making you feel more awake, but your energy level has not gone up. Your energy level is still going down, and you're still making worse and worse choices, but you think you're making good choices. Mm-hmm. And so the same is true for our emotional body. And I like to explain, like I had a lover recently, and she could run 12 miles in one shot. Like there's no way I can run even 1 mile in one shot. But can I lift her up properly over my head with enough strength? Yes. But can she do that? She can't even hold me for more than 5 seconds. So there's a way that our physical body can do different things than mine. And in the same way, there's things that our emotional bodies can do different things. And that's been evolved. If you look at attachment theory as our bodies being built differently, like if you have a different attachment style, your body is built a little bit more differently. And it's got its trade-offs. There's pros and cons. And you could look at secure attachment as the sort of the body that's the most healthy, and that can do the most things for the longest without losing containment, while being able to handle life in a way that's relatively reasonable. So just to go back to your question, is it possible to always be secure? Well, in terms of how you're handling reality, if you're running out of energy, if you're running out of sleep, if you're running out of resources, any resources, especially physical resources, that will affect your emotional body. But if you're running out of emotional resources, so to speak, your ability to handle stress at an emotional level, then you're going to start making bad choices, or your reactions are going to be a little bit shorter, or a little bit more, or a little bit less relevant to the situation. and you might start going, like how people get hangry. Like I've seen that in my son. I'm sure Donna's seen that with her boy over the years. Is if you haven't had enough food, you start to get angry more easily. Your ability to handle what life is throwing at you is becoming less and less. And then of course hormones are about to come for my boy. And the same is true for men and women at different levels. There are times during the month where your hormone levels actually is making things either easier or harder to handle what life is throwing at you. So the fact that we have an a physical body impacts our or emotional body, and that impacts the way we engage with other people, or just with everything that comes at us, which could be a red light at the wrong moment, or it could be a flat tire, or it could be the place you just walked a mile to get to is closed. And how you react to all of that is based on your emotional body. And that emotional body is more resilient, is more able to handle what life is throwing at it, the more secure you are. So the essential idea is that the emotional body of a secure person has better balance and more resources.
Beautiful. It sounds like, really it comes down to being sourced.
Right.
It comes down to just completely sourcing yourself all the time helps you stay in secure attachment.
Yes.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of it. A lot of it has to do. Oh, sorry. Did I interrupt you?
No.
I get excited because this stuff, I swim and I eat this stuff every day, and you'll say 3 words and I'll be like, yes, I want to say something about that. So thanks for your patience around it. So being sourced is really having, when you use the word resourced, right? It means that you have the things that you need in order to handle whatever life is throwing at you. So balance could be a resource, and also the amount of reacting that throws you out of balance could be a different kind of resource. So how much, like if you're on a dance floor and somebody just kind of keeps shoving you, like how many times can you take it before you'll actually fall? But there's also the quality of being balanced in the first place, like having that internal sense of, okay, my body is upright, and I'm not leaning one direction or another. But if you've been tired, or if you've been intoxicated, that sense of balance is not as good. And so to be resourced also calls for other qualities, the qualities that of being able to get back in balance in the moment. That's a particular skill to acquire. So in terms of emotional body, that's called being regulated. There's also the quality or the skill of knowing how to bring back the resources that you need when you're running out of them. Or it's like going to the gas station or sleeping. There are things like that people either can't feel or don't realize are running out. People with an avoidant attachment style have a tendency to not feel their needs, not just emotionally, but physically. And what that means is, on one hand, they can work their ass off for days on ends, but when they crash really hard, because by the time they realize that they're running out of steam or they're running out of resources emotionally and physically, they're already way past the point of doing something about it. Like if they were to start doing something about it in that moment, they would still crash. Because their ability to feel it is so faint or unclear, or it's delayed. Conversely, somebody who's more anxious, they're gonna feel like things are starting to go down, like it's like watching the needle on the gas tank, and it starts to go down, and then there's this interpretation or this fear or this hypervigilance around, like, well, when is it gonna happen? Is it gonna be in 10 minutes or in half an hour? Or should I go to the gas station now and put $5 in? And so there's a more of a hypervigilance around the emotional resources, or around the presence of someone who offers a reference point for balance, with that person going away and not being there, or not having the resources to face what's coming next. So if you've probably heard the term like having emotional spoons, or only having so many spoons in the day. And my understanding is that came from, I think that came from people who are disabled. Like somebody would get up in the morning and they could do 5 things during their day. Well, emotionally, people who are insecure also have a number of emotional spoons. They can only handle so many things, but depending on the attachment style, they will handle it differently. Um, there's really two different forms of engagement for somebody who's insecure. One of them is what was it called? Sue Johnson. There's protest behavior. So one kind of protest behavior is to bring things closer as a way of finding balance, and that's usually either people who are disorganized or anxious. And the reason for that is because to bring something closer means that they can lean on it, and they can find balance, or they can be resourced by co-regulation. And somebody who's more avoidant or also disorganized, depending on the situation, they might actually push things away in order to find their own balance, because that's how their nervous system has the template of their nervous system is really about finding their own balance. And too much closeness actually is distracting because they're hypersensitive in a way that they can't even feel. So how somebody can find their balance, how somebody can self-care in order to regain their emotional resources is something that can be developed over time. And that is really the journey to secure. And there's another piece of the puzzle that's really important. So it's not just about regulation, self-care, not just self-care after the fact, but self-care in the moment and self-care ahead of time. Mm-hmm. But there's also another piece, which is like making sense of what's happening. So because my journey has been around attachment, has been being more on the leaning avoidant. My journey has been sort of like from a little bit more distance, which means that I've been able to kind of look at the map and make sense of it in a way that other people often are so close to it that they can't even see the forest. They can't even see the forest from the trees, so to speak. So back to resourcing. So resourcing is really important, because without it, you never get back to a place where you're fully resourced. But how to resource or how to regulate usually includes some level of learning skills and some level of making sense of what's happening in order to bring the right tool for the right job of either self-care or self-regulation.
One of the things that I notice, because most of my practice is teaching people is teaching people self-sourcing skills. The thing that I'm noticing in all my clients, and maybe you do too, but in all of my clients, is that the ability to even know how they feel, whether they're anxious or avoidant or disorganized, like to actually, so it's actually, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll teach you self-sourcing skills. And I'm like, oh, we have to take it step back. Not even just self-awareness, but actually attunement into the body first. Mm-hmm. There's not only just the self-empathy tool that we've taught you a zillion times, but it's also really having them access the sensations and emotions, like breaking it down, not just to feelings, because feelings are like, how do you feel? I'm fine. I feel good. Totally. So vague, right? That, yeah. Well, what does it mean? Like actually engaging them, and can you talk to me about the sensations inside of your body? And can you talk to me about the emotions that are arising? And that is one of the first steps that I've noticed is really helpful to even get to that point of knowing, what do I want or need, especially for the avoidance. Feeling like once avoidants start to feel, whoo, their world explodes and they've got to work on that whole thing. The anxious folks and the disorganized are feeling. They're feeling a lot all the time. One of the things that I loved that you brought up is that it is a journey. Like, again, these are all skills that you can learn. Not only, like, I can testify to that. You can learn, and you get to keep practicing them. And a cool thing that happens, here, I'll just share a little bit. A cool thing that happens is that when you start to lean into your own sourcing, that you start to hear and see the pattern faster. Now, Just being aware of it isn't going to change it. It's actual practice and it's work. So that's, but you have to like lean into your own sourcing and you're like, oh, here's this anxious, avoidant, disorganized person, whatever, who I love. And I can see that they're doing the thing that my body, which is crazy. And I would love to talk to you about this. Is like my body actually will, like I have an avoidant in my life who leans out, not only just energetically, emotionally, but physically leans out. And I can feel my body go.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm not playing this game with you. I'm not playing, I'm not. And I love you. And I'm just going to lean into myself more. So there's ways that the practice of self-sourcing, the practice of becoming aware of your feelings and acknowledging them without shaming them. There's the practice of getting into a secure attachment. Like, yeah, like these are all practicable. There's hope for you.
I love that you said that you spoke of the awareness piece, because really the journey of becoming secure is a journey of, I like to say there's two long roads of the journey of the secure. So way back when I remember like really like feeling into, okay, I'm avoidant, a friend of mine said that sounded bad. I'm like, no way, I'm not like that, totally secure, which is of course what classic move for avoidance. And
Thanks for being
we're
honest.
great, everything's fine, and then of course we can't feel anything, so we think everything's fine even though there's all kinds of stuff going on inside.
And then you cut and fucking run. Everyone's like,
Right.
where are you?
Yeah, like I need to take care of myself, like I should be able to take care of myself, right? Yes, but it's relationally, it means that I'm trying to do this like essentially spur of the moment without letting you know what's coming, because I can't feel it. Because I can't feel it, by the time I realize I need to do something, it's already too late, and I don't have a choice but to get the fuck out. Sorry about the word. GTFO. And because I'm almost at zero, or I'm almost past zero, I'm barely holding on. And so that's why avoidance ghost. That's why they get out, because by the time they realize they have a need, it's too late. So the awareness of what's happening is part of the journey. So initially, when I realized this, how do I know where I am and where do I go? So that my first foray into the exploration of like the journey to secure was what are the stages? Like there's clearly a stage where people have no idea what's going on and are blaming everybody else. And then there's a stage of, I know what's going on and I think it's all me. Or at least I'm starting to realize what the common denominator is between me and all my relationship. And then there's the stage of, wow, I'm getting the hang of this and I'm starting to catch myself because of the awareness. So I can catch myself when I'm doing a thing, when my body's doing a thing. And then there's the stage of, well, I got this. This is like I'm like a dancer on a dance floor that's able to dance in a room full of people and not bump into anyone. Like there's a grace there, and I don't have to think about every single move. I can, but really it's actually a lot easier it becomes a lot easier because the grace actually guides me along the way. And so one day, randomly, I came across this sort of the stage of skill development. I can't remember what it's called. It's called the ladder of skill development or something like it. And it defined learning a skill between 4 stages. And one of them is the unaware, it's not unskilled, but it's basically unskilled and unaware. And then there's the stage of being aware but still lacking the skills. And then there's the stage of being aware and having some skills, or at least developing them. That's a long stage that can last many years. And then there's the last stage, which is sort of naturally moving with that skill, the skill of the stage of mastery, essentially. When you see people dancing, when you see people cooking, and they don't even have to think about it, they have that intuition that comes along. That comes at the very end. And it comes after many, many years. And I realized, wow, there's a version of that that I will call the stages of secure and the journey to secure. And then people can not suddenly, but by looking at this, they can kind of locate themselves on that journey. They can say, oh, I'm kind of like between stage 2 and stage 3. There's still things that I'm unaware of, and there are things that I'm starting to be aware of. Because I'm aware of it, I can catch myself. And now that I can catch myself, I want to do something about it. Because I'm doing something about it, my life is getting better. I'm not putting my foot in my mouth with my partner all the time. I'm saying the things that actually make a difference, that actually makes them feel cared for, because I can feel them. And because I can feel them, they feel felt, and then they react better with me. And because I can feel myself, I can say I need to take care of myself now, before, instead of surprising them with it, I can do it way earlier than before. And then they can feel, or they can start supporting me in feeling my resources going away. And they can say, hey, I'm feeling with my wife, we have this thing called the frayed knot. It's a joke. I'm not going to tell it, but basically she'll look at me. She'll be like, "You're kind of afraid now, right now." And like, my hair is just a little messy, and I haven't eaten, and I haven't slept. And I'm like, "Well, I can't really do this thing on the computer." And she's like, "Maybe you should eat some food," right? And that's how it started. And initially, I'd be like, "Yeah, you say that, but I don't really need it." But eventually, I was like, "Oh, thank you so much for reminding me of that,"
Yeah.
because I wouldn't feel it. So there's two long roads of the journey to secure. There's a road of awareness, which is long. It can take years. It can take, initially I thought it was 3 to 5 years journey. I've been on this journey for 7 years, and I'm still finding more gold. So I feel like I'm deep in the stage 3, but at the same time, I keep discovering more. So it's a long road of awareness. And as the road of awareness progresses, then there's the second road that kind of parallels it, which is the road of skills. The road of skillfully engaging with reality in a way that's more and more secure, by learning methods, by doing exercises, by engaging with your partner, by making sense of reality, and being like, oh, right now I'm having all the symptoms of not being secure, or not being secure, or I'm having all these feelings, and the best thing I can do right now is to take care of myself. And I don't have to have it all figured out. I can rest, I can chill, I can watch some Netflix. It's okay. And when I sleep, I'll have a better sense of what's happening, and I'll be able to identify better where my feelings are coming from, because feelings are really just messengers. One of my teachers, Francesca Gentile, she would say, like feelings are like this little box, and you open the box, and inside there's a need. If you can identify the need, then you can take care of yourself around that need. And so it can be feelings, but it can also be physical sensations. Everybody has, they're sitting in a weird way, or they're not walking properly, and then they start to feel some pain. And then immediately and automatically they fix that. They adjust their gait, or they adjust their body, and now they don't feel the pain anymore. Well, the same is true for your emotional body. But if you can't feel what's going on in the emotional body, of course you don't take care of it for a long time. And that's why when avoidance, like Trish was saying, like when avoidance can feel, there's this whole explosion, because they like suddenly they can feel all these things they haven't been taking care of. And as a result, they start to live a life that's more healthy. They can feel the things they need. They start to take care of it. They don't expect others to handle it, or they have to learn to accept support from people who can feel these things much more easily. And for anxious, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to make one point that, so, okay, there's a couple like layers to this. We run the self-love show. And a lot of people are like, oh, self-love, like there's like both the positive and the negative of self-love, of like, everyone thinks that if you love yourself, that, it could be narcissistic, or you can only, you can't love anybody if you love yourself. No. Like, or if you don't love yourself. The idea of building secure attachment is also building secure relationships, people that you can cultivate this with. Because as much as I can do the work on my own, if I'm relating with people who don't know attachment theory, or who aren't working on their attachment stuff, it is likely that we're going to hit some of those things. Now, if you're the more secure partner, you can help that insecure partner. Oh my gosh, I follow this person on TikTok that I'm like deeply in love with. Like, I'm gonna send it here somewhere, but it's you're gonna love it. You're gonna be like, oh, because it's really helpful to know how a secure person would relate to an insecure person, or how it shifts. Like the person does this really cool thing where they play out both sides of the roles in a way that you get to hear kind of the thoughts and how the person.
Oh, that's cool.
It's so juicy.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing that I want to bring in is that as much as you can lean back into self-source, as much as you can lean back into your self-love, but it also takes other people to practice. And that's where it can get real messy, right? That's where if I'm not, as a personal example, I've been very sick for the last few months, and I have my people, I have Dawn to lean on. I have my best friends to lean on. And if I, I'm insecure right now. I'm feeling unbalanced. And to pick and choose those people, the choice to choose the people who can actually meet and hold me in that insecurity rather than either bolting or like leaning in too much. So
Or asking for you to exactly.
yeah, so it's like, hey, do you have capacity to be with this? The self-awareness piece and the tool piece is, do you walk those paths together? Like, do you and do the people that you coach? And then, yeah.
So what you're speaking of, I call the secure network. There's everybody's got that. Everybody's got like a handful of friends that randomly call them to say, "Hey, how's it going?" Sometimes you're close to them, sometimes you're not, and they're just calling just to see how you're doing. Like it could be a family member, or it could be a brother or sister, or it could be just this random person that you barely know that's like, "Hey, I just want to see how you're doing because I haven't heard from you in a while." And you're like, "What do you want?" And they don't want anything. And to me, there's a group of people around every single one of us that are sort of like, they're not spirit guides. They're just like loving people that are most likely secure. They don't want anything. They just love you. And that love is just simply expressed through the checking in once in a while, or through there are people you're going to go have coffee with them because you're like, I want to know what this person wants from me. And maybe like that's what's going on in my head, of course. And I'll hang out with them and I'll just be like, oh, I just feel really good now. I just feel like, wow, that was just a good chat. But we didn't exchange it. It wasn't transactional. It wasn't like they needed something from me, or I needed something from them. There was just this sort of like hangout time or cuddle time, or just it was just that simple, and that simplicity, and that there are people around us that are secure or close enough to it that just want to love us and want to support us, and they have the resources. Or they're the people where you're like, I'm moving. And I remember moving this one time, like 4 people that I barely know said, yep, I'll be there. I'm like,
Wow.
hey,
You're
where
bringing
did
up
you come from?
you're bringing up a really good point. I find for myself, I've been on the journey of my whole life, honestly, is to find secure inside, and that I really can resonate with all this whole conversation because I'm a child abuse survivor. And so that's the deep work I do with my clients, is help them connect the dots of where their patterns stem from, what's the roots of it, how they show up, their attachment style, how they operate, and like, what is their operating system? How's it functioning, and how can we help upgrade your whole entire operating system so you're not seeing it the same way anymore, and you can become a secure person. And so I find in my own spiritual journey of choosing good people in my life, it was so interesting because when I moved from Texas to California, I made a declaration to spirit. I said, I am no longer willing to have people that are destabilizing and violent and abusive and all these things that are just completely destabilizing for my nervous system, which was like a live wire, like, when I was young. And I needed to really lean into like my trust inside myself that I could cultivate secure, beautiful people in my life that are solid. And I made that declaration when I moved here, and it's been 20 years, and I have those people. I have a whole crew of people that are like that. And they're just like, they just call hey, how you doing? I miss you. How are you?
Right.
And Trish is one,
Yeah.
and so I'm just so fortunate that my intuition knew to guide me in that direction. And I was always on that road of like becoming more and more secure with self, with life, with God, with trust, and learning to regulate my nervous system. And I don't have to operate as, avoidant or insecure or any of those things anymore. I can really work on myself and self-source, and I use the tools constantly. I teach the tools,
Yeah.
and my clients say, "Thank you, you've changed my life." Like I hear it over and over again with my clients, how much I've helped them just to untangle from it all and show up completely different in their body, in their
Mhm.
emotions, in their way
Yeah.
of being.
Yeah, in a way, you're actually showing up as one of those reference points from their secure network.
Yes.
And by that's one reason why doing therapy is so good, because a therapist will basically act as this sort of this ideal archetype of the secure person. And then they start to have use that as a reference point, like, okay, in my psyche, this my therapist is right there, and they'll find other people that are close enough, not necessarily acting as a therapist, but acting as someone who's not asking for something other than showing up. Like, just allow me to show up in your world and give you some love.
Mirror
And that was that.
mirror neurons.
That's right, exactly. And that is how having a full secure network around us gives us a sense if we're close, if we're sort of like drifting away from that crowd that's around us in our psyche. So it's important to have that. Like I remember what was that? There was a movie, Tom Hanks, he was like lost in a on a desert island, and he was talking to his ball. Can't remember the name of the, he gave the, kind of drew a smiley face, and he was talking to the ball because that was his only way of like feeling like he was staying sane. And
Yeah.
it's easy for us to drift when we're not well connected enough to the right people, because we don't know when we're like drifting away from being secure, from taking care of ourselves. We're like, if you talk to somebody who's secure all the time, or at least secure enough, or act as a secure person reference point, then they'll say things like, oh yeah, I went to bed early because I had to get up early the next morning, or I decided to reduce coffee, or whatever it is that makes their life better. And they'll just by the way they share, they'll give ideas, and they're not like, you need to do this, they're just doing it, and their life works. So because attachment and the kind of bonding that we have with people is a relational thing, we heal that relational wound, or that relational the way that we're ineffective in our relationally, we heal that by having the right people in our life and by learning from them. Yeah, so that's important. I wanted to I wanted to show this cup. So I
Can you get closer?
purposefully chose this cup. It's the
And
Little
for the
Prince.
people who are listening on the podcast, can you
It's a
explain
cup of the Little Prince. So if you've never read the story of the Little Prince,
Oh, it's the Little Prince.
there's a great movie that basically tells the story of the Little Prince inside of another story. That's beautiful. I watched it with my son when he was 5, and he cried for the first time. He didn't know what was going on. He was like, "Oh my God, I'm crying!" He's never cried at a movie before. And the story of the Little Prince is beautiful because it's a story of attachment. So most people don't realize that the Little Prince, I'm not going to give you the whole story, but the basic idea of the story is the Little Prince lives on this tiny little planet, because it's a fantasy story. And on his planet, there's the rose. There's other things on his planet, but there's the rose. And the rose is essentially an anxious person. And he's essentially an avoidant person. So what does he decide to do? Go away. To leave the rose behind, because he wants to explore the world, and he wants to understand why his rose is so annoying. And well, because he feels that doesn't mean she is. It's kind of high maintenance too, but that doesn't mean she is. That's just the way she is. And so he goes away, explores a bunch of planets, which is very typical of avoidance. They go on exploration, and eventually he gets on planet Earth, and he meets a bunch of roses, like a whole field of roses. And he's like, you're kind of like my rose, but you're not my rose. And he realizes in that moment that his rose is unique. And then he meets the fox, and the fox represents this secure person. And what the fox does after he's tamed the fox, which is essentially just kind of getting to know him and building rapport, which in French is apprivoiser. And that word is like a positive version of tame. It's like you're allowing this he's allowing this fox to be scared, but he keeps on showing up, and by keeping on showing up, the fox gets a little closer. And the fox says, if you let me get all the way to you, I'll tell you my secret. And the fox eventually tells him in secret, but I'm not going to tell you the secret because that would be giving away the biggest piece of the puzzle. But ultimately, yes.
Go ahead.
But ultimately, the little prince realizes that he's missing his rose, because his rose is unique, and he's got this beautiful relationship with his rose where he cares for her, and she gives him, I imagine like love or attention, or like there's something really special about it. And she's not like all the other roses. So eventually he goes back.
So,
yes, go ahead.
So that's the thing, right? Is that many of us haven't seen or been able to, like many of us didn't have secure attachments in early childhood. And in fact, society doesn't teach that. In fact, it teaches men to be avoidant and women to be anxious. And then you add a little trauma to it, or you add a little like, who knows what else, the different layers of intersection.
Culturally.
Yeah, cultural intersectionality pieces and violence and whoa, right? Yeah. I'm curious. I know you're not going to tell us the secret, but I'm wondering if you'll tell us at least one tool to get us to a more secure.
Well, the tools that I brought to the table are sense-making tools. So what I can show you is a tool that I'm building right now. And I mean, there's many. I have a few different things. So one of them I spoke of, which is the stages of secure, which will help you kind of figure out where are you on the 4 stages. It's not that complicated, but it'll be useful. I also have some worksheets for you that you'll get the link. What I want to show you is this educational tool that I'm currently creating and developing. And now I have to figure out how to show it. And I've never done this before, so share screen. Oh no, now I have to I have to minimize everything.
I don't know. Can you present?
I can. It seems like I can. Can you see?
Not yet.
Can you see my screen?
No.
Oh, I did not know that.
Which one is it?
It's not any of the links because this hasn't been released yet. So how would I send it? Oh, I'll send it to you using Messenger.
Awesome.
Apologies for everybody who's watching this. I wasn't planning on showing that last piece, but I'm going to do it.
So just to say, you can send it, and when you do, because we have a lot of people who aren't watching, please
I'll be describing
everything in detail on the thing.
Yes,
and in the meantime, I'm going to type in a couple of the community resources page and some of those things as well.
It's been sent.
Great. Let me. Oh, fun. Go ahead and start to describe it.
You know what? I know what's going on because I have to say share. That's what's going on. Did you share it? No, don't do it. I will do it. And okay. View. Can I do that? Okay. Technology is a whole thing. Aha. Okay. Now I'm going to share.
Oh, all right.
Beautiful. All right.
Hold on. Let me put it on. There you go.
Is it visible for everyone now?
Yes.
Amazing. So what I've been developing is an educational tool, and it's called the Journey to Secure board game. And so you'll recognize a couple of things, like on the top top left, just to the bottom, just below the gate of gratitude, you've got the secure network. You'll see there's other landmarks. The top right corner is the kingdom of avoidant. Bottom right is the kingdom of disorganized. Bottom left is the kingdom of anxious. And top left is the kingdom of secure. And really what this game illustrates is the journey that it takes to go from each of the corners all the way into secure. And there's landmarks, and these landmarks are essentially coping mechanisms or things that make that particular kingdom real. Like if whenever I show this to an avoidant and I say, look at the top right, like, you recognize this? Does that make sense to you? And they're like, yeah, oh, wow, nobody's ever like seen me this way. Same thing for the bottom left and the bottom right. But people recognize there's also things that they've been developing over time that are sort of hints of them visiting the secure, the secure kingdom every once in a while, but then going right back to where they are. So this is a tool that I'm developing for people to sit around a table and have a conversation around what's it like to have different attachment styles, not just to normalize it, but also to give a sense of what's it like to sit on the other person's shoes. And I can't remember how I can't tell you how many times I've talked to someone and explained to them what it's like to be an avoidant or to be an anxious person or to be disorganized. And because they're a different attachment style and it doesn't make sense to them. They're like, wow, that I don't get it. Because their nervous system and their emotional body works so differently that the idea of needing to be alone in order to regulate doesn't make sense. That the idea that everything that happens around them in their life is scary doesn't make sense. That that to need someone to always be close doesn't make sense to them. So there's a whole world out there around attachment in terms of attachment theory and what it feels like to be in this emotional body versus this other emotional body. And that world is unknown. If you have a particular attachment style, to have a conversation around what's it like to have a different attachment style is massively important, because it's the kind of awareness that allows you to recode somebody's reaction into something that actually makes sense, into something that actually validates what's happening on their side that's not about you, that allows you to be able to be fully present to their needs without making it about you and how you're not getting your needs met. And so what that means is that somebody who's avoidant would be able to tell to their anxious partner, because it's very common that they get together, that they would be able to tell their partner, like, I can help you up to this point, and then how about you get in touch with your best friend here who would be able to be more available to you from your secure network, or that conversation with the therapist. And for somebody who's anxious to be able to say, okay, I get it, you need to be in your cave now. You need to have that time to yourself, because otherwise you'll overload and you won't be able to be present to me. And for somebody who's disorganized, to be able to hear that their safety is important and that it matters, and to be able to support that safety is extremely important. So a lot of what I just said is essentially secure behavior. And the journey to secure, which is illustrated on this board game, is essentially the journey of learning to do all the things that are secure, learning the secure skills, learning the kind of the secure awareness, going down these two roads and developing these skills and awareness such that you get to hang out inside the secure kingdom most of the time, and with all the landmarks that represent that. So to look at this game gives a sense of where you typically hang out, and where you visit once in a while. And that gives you a sense of what your attachment style is, not as a way of pegging you into something or identify us as something specific, but more as a sense of, okay, well, if I'm hanging out there right now, where can I go? where can I, what skills and what kind of awareness can I develop so that I can make my way to the secure kingdom more quickly? And then you'll notice a little bit of the roads. And so there's a road that goes from, you'll notice, first of all, there's no road from avoidant to secure. There's no direct road. And the reason for that is because an avoidant person has to start feeling before they become secure. Without feeling, you can't feel your needs. Without feeling your needs, you can't take care of your needs. Without taking care of your needs, you can't become secure. It's just not possible.
The thing that I love about the game, so for people who are listening, it's kind of set up in sort of like fairy tale.
Right.
You've got like castle, which is like in the secure department. You've got like, and I love that this like sand dune for the avoidant. You've got like volcanoes and stuff for the disorganized, which is it's very
dangerous.
It's perfect. And then you've got the swamp for the anxious. It's so good. What I love most about this, the not only the images but the game, and that you get to kind of play around, is that it really is based in empathy and curiosity for the other person. Like that is where we get to really find relationship, because it's like if I'm judging you for your need for touch or you're insecure, is it helpful that I'm like not communicating like, hey, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling avoidant, and I mean, how effective it is to get into someone else's skin for just a moment, which gives you an opportunity to actually speak clearly. And that's what you said. You were like, hey, I can only take you to this point, and then please, but that's setting people up for success, right? That's kind of creating a whole moment, like a collaborative reality where you get to really take loving good care of each other.
Yeah.
Again, this is where you get to do it in relationship. This is how things get healed.
Yep.
I'd love to hear, since we're wrapping up on the hour, I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're working with and what's coming up for you, and then we'll kind of complete the show.
Okay. I'm gonna hide. Oh, oops. Okay. Am I back?
You're back.
You're back.
Great.
Yes.
All right. Oh, wow. Now I know I could just kind of show the screen again, okay, sweet. Didn't realize that I could have like lined up all of the links ahead of time. Next time. So just looking at looking at this map, right? This is a map. It's not the territory. Attachment theory is a model. It's not reality. Just the same way that a map is not the territory. The territory is massively more complex than that. But one thing that's clear is that the journey of security is really a journey of 1,001 steps. It's like there's more steps than you can imagine. There's more to discover than you can imagine. There's more balance that you can reach than you can imagine. There's more mastery than you can imagine. So it's a long journey. And nowadays people want like the trick and the method and the tool that will solve all their problems. And if you have had a bag of tools, that there's no one tool that will do all the jobs. Otherwise everything starts to look like a nail, right? If all you got is a hammer. And the reality is having the right tools for the jobs that you need to do is what's important. But you still have to learn how to use them, and that takes time. And it takes time to maintain who you are, to continue to be a healthy human being. And by being a healthy human being, you get to develop the resources that you need in order to face what will inevitably keep coming at you. And if the stuff that's coming at you is not hard enough, then you can just pick something of a higher difficulty level, which is always possible. There's always something more difficult out there, or just start over again with something new. It'll be difficult, but there's something beautiful about secure, is that the secure person doesn't try to do things that are more scary. There's a tendency to want things that are more chill, because there's a knowing that there's always more hard things coming. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so let's try to live a life that's chill enough that when hard things come, you can handle it. So it's not avoidance. It's actually an understanding that finding that just right place in your life and in your and knowing where that is so you can stay there in a sustainable way will allow you to face the hard things when they come to hardship, because there
I
will be
call
extra bandwidth. Yeah.
I call that aligning yourself towards a regulated nervous system.
Yes.
Like,
Totally.
I could go party for like 6 weeks straight and it'd be fun. Don't get me wrong. Or I could do things that really set me up and set everybody else in my life up for success. I could set that up. So I'm aligning myself towards a regulated nervous system. I know that party is going to be fun, but there's a lot of moving parts to that and it's going to make me anxious AF. So
Yes. Yeah, so to know that if you're going to do things that are dysregulating, that you can, you'll do it on in short stints, and then you'll go do self-care. You'll go take care of yourself. You'll recover, whatever it is. I mean, it's okay to go to Burning Man once in a while. It's okay to, yeah.
I was gonna say, this is why I always pair a hot spring trip after Burning Man, because it's really it's amazing. But it definitely can stretch you in a lot of ways. And so having that self-care afterwards is what I know what my nervous system needs.
Yeah, and your partner too, because Burning Man or anything that's difficult and hardship, has a lot of hardship, will stretch you personally and you and your partner. Like Burning Man is a cauldron for a relationship. If you survive it, then it's like you survive at some level. You survive hardship, and you're like
yes.
build trust around it. If it doesn't, so if it doesn't work well, that's hard.
I'll share a little inside tip. My husband and I got married at Burning Man.
What?
When we went to get married, a whiteout started to occur. And I got this feeling of like, no, this isn't supposed to be this way. We're not supposed to get married in a whiteout. And half of our friends, we told them to gather at the temple when the sun hits the mountain, that's when we're going to get married. And so half of our friends were there waiting, and the other half were at our camp. And everyone started walking with us, and we walked from like 6 o'clock zone all the way to the temple. And we walked as a whiteout was starting. And I was like, I still had this anxious feeling like, I don't want to get married in a whiteout. It isn't supposed to be this way. And you know what? My husband grabbed my hand and we started talking about it all. And we started talking about and it made a metaphor out of it. And we said, you know what? It's about weathering the storm of life together.
Wow. What?
And we walked and talked about weathering the storm of life together as we walked all the way to the temple. And we got to the temple and half our friends were there. We had to receive David Best's blessing. He happened to be there. No one had gotten married yet. We get up to the top finally get up to the top of the temple and let us in. And then we looked about the city, and the entire city was a donut of a whiteout, but the temple was crystal clear.
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
And it was just a powerful metaphor of like, we are weathering, we're meant to be together. Our love is a union. We cultivated this deep, powerful relationship of the sacred beloved. And I honor that. And we weathered the storm of life together.
Yeah. And you continue to, and having a child requires a lot of resilience.
It does. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share that because it's such a powerful metaphor for relationships in life.
Yeah. And I feel the same. I feel the same way about my marriage. I feel that to raise a child together, to have a household together, to face hardship together, also makes our marriage worthwhile.
Oh yes.
And it creates a reference point for what it's like to continue and to keep plowing on even when things get hard.
Yes.
And to see the value in how much more deeply it grounds us. And it's a long journey, and it's not a journey that's going to end anytime soon.
Well, that's how you build intimacy, is through conflict, is through
and security.
Security is through conflict and choosing and working it out and continuing. And
that's right. And internally, go ahead.
Can you tell us about, because we're going to wrap up soon.
Okay. So I was going somewhere with this whole spiel. Because the journey of secure is a journey of 1,001 steps, we created something called the Journey to Secure Retreat, and it's essentially it's a micro festival. It's a retreat. It's a place to come and do a few steps. You could do them alone or with your partner at home, or you can come and do it in community with us. So right now we're doing the first one. It's our pilot project, and it's happening in San Diego or close to San Diego at the end of January. And if you go to journeytosecure.com, you'll find all the details. It'll be a small group of anywhere between 20 and 45 people, and we'll see what happens. But the idea is that you can't do this alone. To do it with other people is meaningful. To do it with a partner is meaningful. To learn, to take the steps and go, hey, oh wow, you're doing it too. And how was that for you? And that's what's happening in the Attachment Community Facebook group, which you can look for, and you can, please make sure to reach out to me. Yeah? What's that?
I put all the links in.
Yes.
Yeah, you can find all of these things and the links in not only where you clicked on this page, but also in the chat and comments as well.
Yes, and what's important about that is this is a community of 10,000 people that are doing it together. And when you do things together, there's two things that naturally arise. One, support. Like you're not doing it alone. You feel like you're on this journey with somebody else. And the second thing is some people have nailed things. They have wisdom that is exactly perfect for you. That's also why we find partners and why we find friends, because there's a way we get to contribute with each other. And that's a very important piece of being secure. Yeah. So thank you so much for allowing me to say so many things.
Thank you.
Such a joy. I'm so proud of your work, and you can really feel the love and the passion and the heart that you're devoted to this journey of supporting others. And I'm just so grateful. And I know you're making a huge ripple and change in the world with this, and it's so good. So keep going. Yes. It's so good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Felipe, for your time and your energy and your commitment to building this community and to building a place where people can work on this together without feeling so isolated and alone. This is really crucial. It works faster in community. It moves faster.
After the pandemic, where everybody was separate, like that's even more important.
Yeah, so important. I know. I'm trying to make it there. I have a couple like wild things going on, so I'm like, how do I organize some stuff?
It'd be so good to have you.
Oh, I know, it'd be really, really fun, and I love San Diego.
Oh yeah. Oh, one more thing. If you reach out to me because you saw this video and you want to come to the Journey to Secure Retreat, I'll give you a $100 discount on the retreat because I really want you there. Awesome. And I think right now we're at the second tier, which is $1,100 for 5 days. So it's substantial, you know.
Right on. Self-love show. Mm-hmm. All right. Dawn, would you like to share a little moment?
Yes. And speaking of secure attachment, I have created a whole beautiful Facebook group for those women that are seeking to really dive deep into where they have felt trust issues inside themselves and in their relationships. This is a beautiful opportunity to dive in, receive support, meet a lot of other beautiful women that are also on the same journey, because trust was my biggest curriculum as a child and going through child abuse survivor. I have really gotten to the roots of what that is, and that all my clients work on trust issues, and it's such a powerful place of reclaiming your trust. So I encourage you to jump on in. It's free, great resources and tools there. We would love to have you.
I'm very excited for both of your work. And I want to say a special thank you to Scott Katamis, Love Coach Academy, the Sign Network, John and Summer Raymer, KPFZ 88.1 out of Lakeport for running us out. And always sending love to Roy, our assistant who just makes this all possible every week. We love you. Thank you. And have a really wonderful day, and we will see you next week. And we've got some really interesting and exciting things coming up for you over the next few months, because we have a lot of the Journey to a Secure Attachment teachers. So stay tuned and you'll evolve.